And we are live.
Yay!
All right, everybody. Welcome, welcome. I'm so excited about this conversation. I've been looking forward to this all week. Well, it's going to be good. Anytime you and I get together, it's just freaking magic.
Always magic.
I'm very excited. So welcome, everybody. My name is Gabby Guzman. I am the co-founder of Las Comadres. We are an inclusive community of women entrepreneurs uplifting each other in life and in business. And for those of you who have been following us throughout this quarantine, throughout this quarter of 2020, you know that we had been showing up here with a series we called Lunch Break. And it was just an opportunity to show up with members of our community and give back and share our wisdom, share topics of interest, and considering everything that has been going on in our country right now and the profound transformations and unlocking and dismantling of structures that have been around for hundreds of years, we thought it would be important to engage in these conversations a little bit more deeply and bring in people that we adore and whose wisdom we cherish, to engage in these deeper conversations and do it in a public way where we could engage with the broader community as well. So I am super duper honored to have Lutze Segu kicking off our series, which we're calling Lunch Break, What's Next? And this is really about our commitment to having an ongoing conversation and not having what is happening right now end in a single Instagram post. Like this, what is happening right now is raw and it's real and it's coming from the root, and our having an ongoing conversation about it is how we're showing up in that way. So I want to share a little bit about Lutze. I'm going to read a little bit of her amazing bio, but then invite her to also add a little anything else. I want to also just share how Lutze and I know each other, and it's kind of interesting. This is, for me, like my relationship with you, Lutze, is a testament to like pay attention to the people that are just like on your radar, because Lutze and I have kind of like been in each other's radars for years, and like 6 months would go by and then we'd like see each other at an event, and then like another 6 months would go by and we'd be like in the same like the Miami Girls thing, and then it was just like, and I was always like, something was always telling me like yes, yeah, like every time I saw Lutze I was like, that's a yes, and I don't even understand it yet. And so like over time, that connection has grown deeper. And today I am proud to call Lutze a friend. And she is also helping us in a professional capacity in our organization to really show up in a way that is a true commitment to anti-racism, not just as individuals, but as a company and as an organization and as what we represent as a community. So Lutze is a first-generation Haitian American. She was born and raised in Miami. And her love for Black women writers like Toni Morrison and Audre Lorde led her to a world where community and advocacy became her driving force. So today she is an activist, an organizer, and social worker, and that has led to a beautiful title that everybody loves and I think completely encompasses what you do and who you are, which is the Social Justice Doula. So funny, I had a friend in Mexico this week that was like, this is exactly what we need right now. And so Lutze's work ranges from social justice workshops to strategic HR, and right now she is wrapping up her doctorate degree in the Social Justice Institute in Vancouver, Canada. So
I wouldn't say I'm wrapping it up, but we're getting close. We're getting close. We're getting close. Yes,
I'm setting intentions for you.
Please.
So yes, did I miss anything, my friend?
No, I don't think so. I think that's it. I'm really happy to be here, be in this conversation. I just think it's important. I like to always root ourselves in the land. You know that Miami, for a lot of people are, from Miami who are going to be watching, that Miami is the land of the Seminole, Miccosukee, and Takesa First Nations. And these conversations cannot be had ethically if they're not first rooted in land, if we don't understand that, like, the United States is colonized land, that there were people here, those people's land were stolen, those people are still here, they're not a relic, they're not archaic, and stolen land built by stolen people, and that people had to be stolen and trafficked here to start this group project we call the United States. And so all of these problems literally stem from that inception, from that birth, the birth of indigenous dispossession and anti-Blackness. So those two things put together is what makes the United States. And you cannot undo anything in the United States if you don't understand that entanglement.
Yes. Yes. Thank you. Thank you for that context. And I think it's important for us. I like what you said, like grounding the conversation in that first. Yes. And I'm just so thrilled that it feels like the world is more open to this than it has ever been before.
Yes. And that's just a testament of our consciousness is our collective consciousness around a whole host of things are changing, are forced to change, and people are realizing that we can choose different, we could choose better, and people are seeking out those new and better choices.
Yes, yes. And so along those lines, I wanted to just kick it off with your personal feelings about what is going on right now, because one of the things we were talking about right before we went live is how time just seems like this construct right now, and truly movements that have been in the works for 10, 20 years, we're seeing action being taken within a matter of days. On things that I personally thought was going to take us another 50 years to accomplish. And so there is a collective awakening that is happening. There's daily protests for the last 2 weeks. There's so much progress we're already seeing at a local kind of legislative level, and with norms and rules and structures falling. Like, what are you feeling right now about, like, sort of the magnitude of what's going on?
It's a lot. So I'm holding the tension of two things. Number one, the big tension I'm holding is that Black death always has to be the awakening for this country and for a lot of its citizens. And so that is very hard when you live in a Black body, that like at any moment, like you just can't, like, Black people die differently. Like we just don't die. It's how we die. We have to turn into hashtags. Our deaths has to be politicized. Our surviving family members have to spend hours and days and months rehabilitating our reputations, because that's the first thing that gets assaulted is like the cases built against us, that why we deserve to get killed in a very specific kind of way. So I'm holding that in regards to, like, why can't we get to a place where we understand that, for the most part, most people understand that the Holocaust was awful and was horrible. No one needed to see receipts. You didn't need to see what was exactly happening in order for us to all understand, like, yo, that was wild. That never needs to happen again. However, Black people just don't register on the level of humanity for a lot of people, even the people who claim to love us, that they constantly need to see the receipts of our death, of our precarity, of our despair, in order to be like, oh, I should change, I should awaken. So I'm holding that tension.
Yeah.
And in the other way, I'm holding the tension of, like, as a Black feminist thinker, I've been training for this moment, because I understand that rioting, protesting, our love language. That's a social justice love language. I understand that political education is a love language. And what we're seeing right now is years of activists, organizers, Black, queer, and femme thinkers who have been teaching us why Black Lives Matter, who have been giving people the language, who have been giving people new ideas about what do you think about defunding the police? What do you think about abolishing? And so what we're seeing is, like, new imaginations emerging, new worlds emerging. And that makes me very, very, very hopeful, because we understand this is not a moment, this is a movement, and new people are coming into the movement. And as a social worker, as someone who inherently believes that people can be transformed, we are in a transformational moment. Some of us will be forever transformed, and some will not, because we understand that's how change works. Some people must and can go with us, some people cannot. And so I'm bringing all of that, like, I'm bringing all of that.
Yes, yes. And before we continue, I also want to say that part of today we hope is also not just kind of us talking, but more of a conversation. So anybody watching, if you have questions, if you have comments that you'd like to share, please do. And to the extent possible, we'll bring them into the fold of what we are discussing. And I think as obviously, like, there's so many different layers and pieces to what's going on that we could really dig into. And we structured the conversation today around this commitment to being an anti-racist. And I think, like, in hearing what you were talking about, what I saw was the spectrum, where everyone seems to be, everyone moved towards the like if over here is white supremacist and over here is like heart and soul everyday committed anti-racist, it's like everybody did whoop and like move to this side. At least a good chunk of people. I do believe that there are some people that kind of double down over here, and that's fine. But if the New York Times bestseller list is any indication, if the New York Times bestseller list and the like public statements of corporations around this country are any indication of where we are as a people, we did a movement towards this side.
And so, and so how I'm registering is that people are asking themselves a question: hold up, am I racist or am I anti-racist? And what we're seeing in real time in these posts, in these questions, in these emails, in these statements, is like everyone, organizations are thinking like, wait. What side am I on? What side do I want to be on? And people as clumsily, and some people are doing it better than others. Some organizations are doing it better than others. But what we're seeing is a collective question: where am I? Self, where am I? Organization, where am I? Am I anti-racist? And if I am, what does that mean? In what direction is that caravan going? If I'm not anti-racist, what direction is that caravan going? And so literally we're seeing people self-segregate. We're seeing people like, okay, we're going into the arena. Some of us are going to the right. Some of us are going to the left. And what I see is like a whole bunch of people in the middle trying to figure out, whoa, where are my people? Is it right or is it left? And so that is what I'm seeing. And it's making for very interesting times and very interesting conversations, because you're right. As people are self-segregating and finding themselves among their anti-racist caravan and camp and section of the arena, now we're getting to the place where I'm always excited to be at. There's work to do here, because there's this assumption that all the work is over there in trying to convert them. And it's just like, actually, there's a lot of work to be done within the choir to ensure that we are singing from the same hymn book and we are melodious and we are in harmony with each other. And so now what we're seeing is a different kind of self-segregating. It's just like, who's a soprano, who's an alto, who's a tenor, who just, so who's gonna play the organ, who's gonna be on the tambourine, like I'm a recovering Baptist. I use a lot of church metaphors. So like, yeah, so it's fine. It's okay. I'm not trying to like sell you on anything, but like, so this is what I'm seeing. And like, finally, like we could get to past some of these 099, 098, 101 questions, because people are like, wait. This problem is more systemic, is more endemic, is more baked into this country than I thought. And so consciousness, because as an educator, that is the thing I'm interested in. And I love to see, like, I see people awakening to critical thinking and to thinking about things radically different. And that to me is beautiful. That to me is inspiring. That to me is the thing that no matter what happens, that keeps me going, because this is like, it's just like if we could think about Neo from the Matrix, it's like, you're seeing people unplugged, and they're like, now everyone can see the code. It's just like, yeah, and the code is anti-Black, and it's just like, what you gonna do? You with Neo with Morpheus, or you with the agents? Where you with? Who you with?
Yes, and I think it's important that we talk very frankly about what that experience is. I think that because we are socialized. This is a culture of immediate gratification. This is a culture of like, where's the hack to fix this thing? Like, let me go on a 3-day retreat and heal all of my life's traumas. Like, this is a culture of like, or it's also a culture of, I feel uncomfortable, let me numb that out, let me push that down, let me drink, let me do drugs, like let me like numb the uncomfortable. And this, by its very definition, is inviting you into the uncomfortable. And I think that if we're honest with ourselves, anyone who has actually seen any kind of growth in their lives, you've had to walk through the darkness. You've had to walk through the unknown, the tunnel, the weirdness and the uncomfortable in order to grow. And so I think that this process in itself is also asking people to look at themselves and to grow and to sit with uncomfortable. And I think that racism, being like that label racist, is something that has been, people have understood it as like, I'm a bad person. Like if I'm a like I'm not a racist because I'm not like a Ku Klux Klan member, or like I'm not a racist because I'm not like actively doing bad things, being mean to Black people. When people don't understand that like racist behavior is all around us. So like that, Go ahead. Yeah.
Yes, racist behavior is all around us, and also like I have a really hard time with the concept of good. I don't understand what good is in a society that allows this level of subjugation, oppression, and poverty. Where are these so-called good people? And I also want us to get to a place to resist binary thinking, to like, you're either good, you're either bad, you're either a monster, or you're whatever. And so what would it look like for the average American, however you come to the United States, whether you're born here, immigrated, crossed here, you're documented, undocumented, doesn't matter. What would it look like for all of us to ask ourselves, for all of us to ask ourselves, what does it, just let go of the concept of good and really think about like effectiveness and how are we responding to the world? Because to me, good, when Black life can get snuffed out so easily, where are these good white people? Good, when trans people, when Black women, when Black trans women and brown trans women of experience die at age 35, that's their, like, what's a cis good person in that context? So I ask us like to resist that, and also to resist the notion that we are one thing, that we can be really good people in terms of our family loves us, our children love us, we are loved, and we can support racism at the same time. Those things are not mutually exclusive. And so let's let go of easy, let's let go of simple, let's let go of the binary, and understand that we are complex human beings, that I can be a loving person at home, I can be loved by my people in my community, and I can be an emotional terrorist and use racism to terrorize other people.
Yes.
And so, yeah, I just want us to let go of that and really just lean into, am I, in this moment, am I being racist or being anti-racist? Am I being effective or am I not being effective? Am I in solidarity or am I not? Let's get down to asking ourselves, in this moment, with this person, in this interaction, in this ballot box, these amendments I'm about to vote for, what am I using? What am I moving towards? What are my actions? What am I actually practicing in the moment? Because these things are practices. And like, yeah, I can be anti-racist on Facebook and on Twitter and on IG. And in my personal life, I'm awful to people, which I have so many tragic stories of white women in South Florida in particular, who that's their thing. They're known out in the world as, I'm anti-racist, I'm the nice white lady. And then on an interpersonal level, these folks are awful and horrible. And when they're invited to re-examine themselves, they don't. So they are more committed to the practice of aligning themselves with white supremacy than in leaning in the messiness and the complications of anti-racism, because you're absolutely right. There's no easy button, there's no hack, there's no praise. It's a messy, complicated thing. However, if you commit to it, you will deepen your relationships with your people. You will see things differently, and your understanding of yourself and your humanity, you will also start to save yourself and bring yourself back from white supremacy. And all of those things are good things. And you will lose people, you will lose relationships, You will lose parts of your identity. It's all of it. But again, any of us who have ever gone through the cycle of change and who have ever surrendered in the most loving and empowered way to the changes in our lives that we want and need, you know that when you survive that, you are so much better for it. And let's get to the better.
Yes. There are three massive points that you just made that I really want to stress. Number one is to me, one of my words for the year has been whole. Mm-hmm. Show up whole. So I don't want to be good. I want to be whole. And understanding that in my wholeness, there's going to be some stuff about myself that I don't like.
Yeah. If you're paying attention to yourself, there's a litany of things that you're like, I'm in acceptance, but I don't like it.
Yes. And there's no shifting out of those things unless you see them and accept them. You got to start by realizing, what are those things about yourself that you are rejecting? What are those things about yourself that you're not proud of, that you might feel ashamed of? And understanding that today in this moment is a part of your wholeness and it's a part of your story. Now, the second point you made, it's a behavior, it's a practice. So getting outside of you are a racist and stepping back and being okay, what is the behavior that I am creating in the world that is fulfilling my commitment to anti-racism right now? Am I showing up in this way with the way that I treat the person down the street? Am I showing up in this way with the people that I hire in my company? Am I showing up in this way with the conversations I have with my family, with the things I choose to consume? Kind of checking yourself in the way that you're living your life against that commitment, right? Making it about the behavior, I think, is going to free a lot of people from the stuckness that they feel right now. Because I think a lot of non-Black people, a lot of white Latinos and a lot of white people feel very guilty right now.
And they should.
And they should.
And they should. I don't want to, I'm Lutze is never going to sugarcoat it. I'm never going to lead you down to whatever. There is a lot of guilt to feel, because what does it look like? Because again, Black people, we have been making these same petitions since we were trafficked here. Since 1619, we've been telling folks Black lives matter. Now, if you are a person of conscience, right? Because again, what happened? When Donald Trump got elected, everyone and their mama went to some kind of women's march. I did not go. And now, as the time goes by, I feel even more vindicated and so happy that I made that decision that I didn't attend any women's march. And whatever, I could tell you why, but we'll put it on the shelf right now. I was under the impression, I was being told by white women of various hues and ethnicities and everybody, whatever, this won't happen again. The resistance. I'm awake. Okay, girl, I get it. All right. I wasn't paying attention to you. I wasn't listening to you, Black girl, but now I'm here, whatever. And now we're here. My thing is, how is it possible that you fell asleep under a Donald Trump presidency? Somebody help me. Show me the PowerPoint. Show me the Google Maps. How did this happen that the good white liberal people who, under Obama, you could not talk to a white liberal. White liberals were obtuse, were disrespectful, were insufferable under Obama. So number one, Trump happens, oh my God, don't know why this happened, don't know how this happened, how could this have happened? Oh, and then all of a sudden, the resistance. Now, wow, okay, I guess this nation is anti-Black. That's a lot, Gabby, that's a lot. That's a lot. And again, my people have been saying the same, we got the same talking points since 1619. Yes. Everybody and their mama, and the New York Times came out with the 1619 Project, everyone was like, did you get it? Did you get it? Did you get it? Robin DiAngelo's book, Right Fragility. You could not go anywhere and someone not trying to show you, hey girl, I'm reading this, how to be an anti-racist. You can't even find the book anymore on Amazon because everyone, but it's just like, people. Yeah, there's a lot of guilt because it's like, what you've been doing? Where have you been? And so, yes, let us not rush anything. When we are waking up, when we are kicking a habit, we're going into our sobriety. You gotta feel it. You gotta vomit. You gotta be with
what you call the withdrawal period.
You gotta be with it, right? And so I don't want you to die from the withdrawal period, because withdrawal can be very dangerous, right? But yes, kicking the habit of white supremacy, yeah, honey, you're gonna be in that guilt until you're not in that guilt. And then the beautiful thing about guilt is that it's actually generative, because guilt will push you to ask yourself, this is who I am, this is who I want to be, and it'll force you to calculate the math between how you close that gap. Shame is immobilizing. Shame is paralyzing. Shame tells you you ain't good, you ain't never gonna be good, so you ain't gotta try. So yes, please be with your guilt in a radical way, in an honest way, and allow your guilt to open up new avenues and choices for you.
100%. I feel like guilt right now is the greatest gift, because it is the beginning of the growth.
It is the beginning of the growth.
Individual feeling guilty, welcome it.
Yes, because and welcome it, because every non-Black person of color in the United States of America profits from anti-Blackness. And you got to sit with that. You got to sit with the fact that every immigrant group compares their progress against anti-Blackness. That is how. So yeah, you got to sit with that. You got to eat that for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and put it in a roll, put it with your kale salad. Be with the radicalness and the honesty of it. Be with the messiness and the ickiness. And it's like, okay, white passing Latina girl, which I hate the term white passing. White Latina woman, what are you going to do? What am I going to do? What am I going to do? Yes, I have a very brown ethnicity, but the world sees me as white. The world responds to me as white. And low key, when I look in the mirror and how I move and how I operate, that's how I move and operate. So let's start asking ourselves radical questions. Am I comfortable standing on Black people to feel tall and better, and to feel good with the white people? That's a hard question you got to ask. And the quicker you could ask yourself that question and get to the answer, the better you will be and the better we will be. But yes, this is a messy awakening, clunky, and I could see it because I'm getting so many Facebook requests and whatever, and there are days I feel like when I'm walking the neighborhood of my timeline, I am just like, I cringe, but I'm like, okay, I get it. These people are early, they're new to this, and so, and again, they are, unfortunately, they're not gifting themselves the right of doing a lot of this stuff privately, and so they're just on fire, and they're just putting these statements, and you could just tell, like, ooh, I eventually you'll get out of this, you'll read more, you'll do more, and maybe you'll get to a point where you start to go to workshops and you hire someone to really work it out. But it's painful. It's a painful process to kind of try to hold space for people to wake up and to make those early mistakes. And at the same time, it's like Black people have been saying the same thing since 1619. And yes, you should feel guilty about that. You should feel indicted by that. You should feel a kind of way about that, because I feel a kind of way about that.
Yes. And there's something that we have been talking about that I think it's relevant to bring up now, because it is about that uncomfortableness. It is about that space where you start to feel guilty. And I think it's important that we speak about this, because there's a lot of lessons for a lot of people watching, and for me, from the way that these things have gone down. But we have called it the good white liberal response. And just to give a little bit of context, I don't know if anybody watching has the context, but there are enormously successful white women entrepreneurs, the Marie Forleo, Jenna Kutcher, Rachel Hollis, that have recently been very publicly called out, very, very publicly called out.
Even Jacob Frey, the mayor of Minneapolis, yes. I would put him in this camp too.
And so, and even though we acknowledge there was some work that had been happening, but yes. Mm-hmm. And so they have been, and it's like this thread from my vantage point, what I've seen is this thread of clearly there has been no work done there. But they're put up on this pedestal. Like, these women have been like, they're the ones that have figured it all out. And it's like the moment that somebody has like, we said not even poked, like nudged a little bit, like, hey, by the way, Black people, the response is, it like crumbles. It crumbles. And so like, I think it's important that we talk, and it crumbles, and then it's like angry and defensive, like, how dare you question, and I shut off the comments, and like da-da-da-da-da, before
you can set your timer to it. It's so tragically like the regular response is I'm shocked when people do the right thing, because it's just you could time it.
Yeah. And so, yeah, let's talk about it. Like, let's unpack this.
So what were we calling it?
The good white liberal response.
The good white liberal response. So again, what happens is when you buy into your own goodness, that's literally what we're watching. That's literally what we're watching. You buy, because again, your ego ain't your friend. It's protective, it's helpful, but when we're talking about your friend who's trying to get you free, no. Your ego will always set you up to look like Boo-Boo the fool. And so what happens is you have these people who are multimillionaires, or you are the mayor of a pretty progressive city, and like what happens is, I'm gonna separate. So you have the mayor of Minneapolis. I could tell by listening to his interviews and everything. This guy he's done his reading. At the very least, he's done the reading. He's done the assignment, and he did his stuff on the discussion board. He showed up for the group project. However, when he was asked, will you defund the police? His imagination is still in the hands of white supremacy. He cannot imagine a world where we shift resources to communities and we change whatever. So he's in that conundrum. I believe Black Lives Matter, and I want to support the police. Antithetical, can't do it. Boom. That's a deeper question. Let's put it there. The Jenna Kutchners, the Maria Folios, what's happening is that, how can you be talking about empowering people and not even consider the conditions that keep people in bondage? How are you not thinking about gender? How are you not thinking about race? Because again, Black people have a gender, we have a race, we have a gender expression, we have a citizenship status, and so on and so forth. So how are you empowering women and you're not even thinking about like the different doors people come to enter womanhood? So to me, it just seems like you have this empire, you're a good person, you're leading other good people to do a thing, but you're never dealing with the fact that all of this good work is happening on a colonized land where people were stolen to do that. And you're taking Black people's money, you're taking Black people's viewership, but you don't even consider them actual members of your community because you never even thought about how the conditions of this world locks them out from becoming a Maria Folio or Jenna Kutchner. It's just like, girl, like, what? And again, to me, when I see those kind of mistakes, it's just like, why would you leave yourself so vulnerable in this day and age? And so if you are convinced of your goodness, you will always fall publicly, very flat on your face all the time. So this is what it is. So what we're seeing is, I will say, at least for Jenna, it looks like she had a better response than Maria's initial response. But these are two powerful white women who've never had to consider their role in white supremacy. Because what happens with white women specifically, they get so caught up in like their gender. I'm oppressed gender-wise. And they never think about the immense power, not even privilege, forget that word, the immense power they have as white women, and they never scrutinize that. And so in this moment, what we're seeing is that people are asking them, hey girl, have you thought about your power? Have you thought about your privilege as a white person? And then all of a sudden, you are attacking me because, you know, I live in this woman body, and, you know, we don't have gender equality. And so all of a sudden they have to reconcile, like, yes, one body can both have immense power and privilege and also be oppressed. And guess what? You have to be an expert in both.
Yes.
So that is the conundrum of the goodness, because folks only want, and when it's convenient for them to focus on one aspect of their identity, they'll do the readings, but they'll never surrender and allow their imagination to change. And so to me, when I think about, they didn't mean, Jenna and Maria weren't malicious, but there's a way in which we really have to think about, did Black people really register to you? And if they did, on what level? Was it just buy my product kind of level? Or did we register on, you are a fellow member of my species, you are equal human to me, and I should think about how I build my community to honor your personhood.
And honor the differences, what you talk about all the time. Because I think that one of the greatest flaws in the structure that has been built by so many of these like incredibly successful and admired white women who have made millions and millions of dollars is that they have built a structure of white supremacy. They have built a structure of white is the default.
Right.
White default. And the thing that hit home for me the hardest was that Marie Forleo specifically was called out by this woman who said, you have been your whole life advocating for women to have a voice and to use their power, but you didn't mean Black women. Because the moment that the Black women in the community started speaking up and using their power, you shut off the comments.
So Gabby, and this is where, if you want to talk about the thing that hurts me the most, the thing that's weathering me, the thing that's taking years off of my life, is that violence that white liberal women do. Because what happens is, these good white liberals, they will look at what happened to George Floyd and say, that's awful. Black life should not be destroyed in that way. But in their relationship with you, they don't, again, I ask, how am I registering to you as a fellow human? Because exactly what that woman said, exactly, like, you didn't mean, when you said women, you were not thinking about, even considering Black women. You were not. And so this is how white liberals perpetuate anti-Blackness, because they do not see Black people as people having complex interior lives, as people having complex feelings, and people having complex thoughts about things. There's this assumption that if we don't call everything out, that we don't see it. No, girl, like, I have to reserve my energy. And so I probably noticed your BS, Maria Forleo. It didn't rise to the threat level. Your BS now has risen to threat level, because now you're shutting off comments. Now you're policing. You're literally doing what the police do to Black people all the time. You're policing us and surveilling us in a very specific kind of way. And you're telling me that my humanity does not fit your equation, does not fit your budget, and I need to do that elsewhere.
Yes.
So that is that goodness. So I challenge all white folks who are watching this right now to really ask, there are different levels of Black Lives Matter. What level are you on?
Yes.
So you might agree I should not be shot and killed by the police, but that does not mean when I have a beef with you, when I have critique and generative feedback for you, that you're willing to hear it. Because when you get defensive in whatever, yeah, you're trying to say, like, I don't matter. That's Black life doesn't matter. Because if Black life matter, Black opinions matter, Black futurity matters, Black creativity matters, Black money matters, Black healing matters. You name it. If Black lives matter, okay, on that spectrum, where are you? So good white people, good liberal people, good non-Black people of color, allegedly, supposedly, ask yourself that question. What level are you on radically seeing the humanness of Black people?
Yes, that is the question. And I think it's really important that from a historical standpoint, how we will look back, there were two incidents Memorial Day weekend. And the other incident was a New York City white liberal woman, Amy Cooper. And so I think that, like, where the growth is that, because there were a lot of people that were very quick to be like, how dare she, and fire her, and da-da-da-da-da. And, like, I'm wondering, like, how many of us, because I am one of these white liberals, how many of us sat with, like, oh shit, when have I been Amy Cooper?
Hello. Let me tell you something, Gabby. let me tell you something, Gabby.
When have I shown up that way and nobody's had a video, nobody's recorded it, right? Like, when has that happened and it has not been recorded? When have I been responsible?
Girl, let me tell you something. If you are truly friends with a Black woman, like for real, and she'll tell you some stuff, trust me, you've been an Amy Cooper. Or she can tell you about your friends who've been Amy Coopers. And you know how in the movie Mean Girls, they have the burn book?
Yes.
I love that movie. It's iconic. And it's like, do know, like, we are keeping a burn book of white women, and you're in the levels of Amy Cooperisms. Because again, and I think that's why she registered for so many people, because for people of conscience, I think they definitely saw themselves. Like, and so again, you might not have ever called the police on someone, but energetically you acted like you wanted to call the police.
Yeah.
Because right now, everyone and their mama is calling me and texting me and like wanting to work with me. Okay, that's good and that's great. But they're coming with that same, I want to speak to the manager of racism energy. They're coming with that same energy. And it's just like, girl, racism ain't got no manager. Like you can't speak to the manager. And I appreciate, I appreciate when the white women in my life use that energy to get stuff moving.
Yeah.
But that's not a really good energy to come to anti-racism. That is not a very good disposition. Like, cause no, your panel, your whatever you think you're gonna get done in the next 2 weeks is not gonna solve anti-Black racism.
Yes.
You have to have a strategy around how you're gonna manage your inner Amy Cooper.
Yes. So we have a couple questions from the people.
Please.
It's comments, but Vivian said, yes, like the right to do the work privately, like the inner work. This is tough and personal and universal. So that was a comment. And then from, I think, Christina, how do we change the conversations from the external, meaning blaming others, to the internal, what we're talking about, meaning accepting our individual and collective responsibilities and eliminating racist behaviors?
Yeah, we have to be in radical truth-telling about what were the conditions that created the United States. What are our immigration policies rooted in, and like how people define success. So the internal stuff is just like, we all have to accept, we all inherited a racist society. We all have anti-Blackness, and we all have a choice to make of whether we're gonna be racist or anti-racist. There is no magical race that one has, or skin color that one has, that precludes, that creates the conditions in which you don't have to do the work. So we all have to ask ourselves, self, right or left? Where am I going? And so we have to be honest around that, and just and with that honesty, what is our strategy to combat that honesty? And say to myself, what do I not know? Because a lot of people, it's interesting, like, we put immigrants through the rigmarole to become citizens. The average person who was born here does not know anything about their country. Does not know anything. That quiz, I know. Does not understand like what the electoral college is, how it came to be. Does not understand like when you see people tearing down civil rights, these statues of Confederate generals. Do you really know why that is? Do you know what it feels like to be Black and to walk past a monument, to walk past a building that is heralding someone who thought you weren't even a person, who was willing to disband and not be these United States for their right to own me? Yeah. Do you know the gravitas of that? Do you know that white families used to get together and picnics to watch lynchings of Black people? Like, that was considered good family fun. And they made postcards and they sent it to each other. Do you understand the level of depravity and barbarism that everyday good white citizens engaged in all the time? At the height that MLK died, white folks hated him. They thought he was too much. He thought he was just too radical. And now all of a sudden he's our Santa Claus. So can you tell that kind of truth? Like, some people will be like, well, those are not my ancestors, and I didn't come from that, right? But guess what, baby? You got entry. You in this arena called these United States.
You benefit from it.
You benefit from it, and that is your history too. And can you be with that the way I have to be with the fact that the barbarism, the depravity. When you look at pictures of Black kids who were desegregating these schools, you could see the hatred of the white students and the vitriol. I remember years ago, I got to see one of the Central Park, one of the women who integrated Central High. She's in her 60s and 70s. She said she was spat on so much that she could wring the spit out of her dress. That is the trauma. Now again, this woman is still alive. And so that is still an active thing. Like, again, we have to understand, like, these things didn't happen that long ago. So again, you think that kind of depravity and barbarism, you're gonna stamp that out of one good book reading and having a casual friendship with a Black friend at work? Come on, y'all. Tell the truth.
Yeah.
Tell the truth, tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth.
Just starting, because as you're saying, it's not just the history of it. It's like the thing that's coming to mind right now is how many people, and like, yes, animals, but how many people brought up the dog with Amy Cooper?
Let me tell you something.
The layers of insulting and like lack of humanity, that like your concern, there was a Black man that was about to get killed by the police and you're like, but the dog.
But you know what? And that is the typical good white liberal response. And again, another example of how good white liberals actually, they have not truly interrogated on what level does Black life really matter. If white liberals cared for Black people the way they cared about their dogs,
no, it'd be done. Oh,
baby, I would have, reparations would be given. People would be all right. Universal basic income would be a thing. Man, let me tell you, if white liberals collectively took all of that energy they have for dogs and put it towards immigrants, Black people, and everything, this, like, North America would be radically different. Yeah. And folks got to ask themselves that question. Like this week, I was like, I'm trying to get a dog and I need help because they're asking 50,000 questions and whatever. It was very interesting watching the responses. First of all, like people who've never responded to my post were coming out the woodworks, like, how can I help you? Da, da, da. And it was very interesting, the conversations around it. And it's just like, well, and it was hard for me not to be like, well, damn, does Black life register on this level to y'all?
Yes.
But
I think that's like one of the most massive points of this conversation that I really hope lands for people is that this isn't just, it's very easy to call out Trump supporters. It's very easy to call out people who are self-proclaimed white supremacists. Like, it's very easy to like, oh, them. The work that we are talking about is with liberals, is with progressives, is with looking inward, because it is here in all of us. Like, that is what we're talking about. Like, get off the high horse of like, that's their problem. Like, they're actually being honest about who they are.
And this is a fundamental crisis of whiteness. White people do not see themselves as being in kinship with other white people. So it's very easy for them to be like, it's those white people over here. Even if it's their mom or their dad or their uncle or their cousin, it's very easy to be like, well, I'm not them. And it's just like, how is that possible? How is that possible that you are part of this collective group? How is that possible these are your biological kin and you're somehow some special snowflake and none of their stuff, it landed on you? See, the question is, if even the most non-religious, agnostic, atheist Black person understands ancestry and understand that they're in kinship with other Black people. Indigenous people, that's how they understand themselves to be in relationship with land, the plants, animals, and themselves.
Culturally.
So to me, it's like thinking about white liberals. How can you actually be in solidarity with these two groups of people when we're radically rooted in kinship and you don't believe you have kin? And you believe you're some individual. So individualism has no place in anti-racism. Yeah. And what I see is this way in which white liberals still want to like, they want to show you that they're the peacock. I'm the fancy peacock. I'm the good white person. And it's just like, Okay, if you're the good white person, go save your other white people.
Yeah.
Go get them. Go get your cousin. Go get your uncle. Go get your pawpaw. Go get them. Go get them. If you're really, go get them. Move back to the rural place that you moved out of, right? Because that's another thing. People want to escape their racist family members and get and move to the biggest, coolest big city. Okay, I get it. No one wants to live in these certain parts. Look, I'm a city girl. I wouldn't want to live there either. But like, that's a very interesting thing. The minute you can, you disassociate yourself from those people. And then you get mad when Fox News, Rush Limbaugh, Donald Trump talks to those people. You're not talking to them. Somebody got to talk to them. So it's just like, come on. So to me, it's just like, white liberals don't think those white people are good enough for them. On some level, they don't think we're human enough for them over here as Black people. It's just like, fam, what you doing? What are you doing? What's the job here?
Yeah. And I think like, just to spend a little bit of time, because the next point is just a point that has to be made, but I think that that's been one of the things that I've been really heartened to see is people starting to understand what doing the work means. So, okay, like now that I feel uncomfortable, okay, like I want to start taking some action and educating myself and checking myself. So what would you say? I think it's like, it's a combination of things. It's like, it's kind of like living this way now. Like for me, the thing that switched for me is that it wasn't like some workshop. It is the way that I live my life now. Like,
yeah.
Story.
And again, it's a combination of things because we're seeing these anti-racist reading lists. And it's just like, I've met a lot of white people who've read the right books and they have no praxis. They have not integrated any of that into like a lived experience. They're still living a very homogenous, because again, you could read all the books in the world. If your entire world is white, who you practicing that anti-racism with? Mm-hmm. Who are you practicing it with? With other white people? So, so again, you have to read the books. Okay, let me back up. If you choose to be anti-racist, you are choosing to be in rigorous practice. That means you have to constantly unlearn and you have to constantly learn, which means if you don't have a good relationship with reading, you're already behind it. You're already behind because you're gonna have to read, and you're gonna have to read books by Black people, Indigenous people, and people of color. I would really highly suggest that you prioritize reading those books. When you're done reading, who do you give to? How do you vote? Who do you date? What kind of conversations do you engage with? All of those kinds of things. And then you have to think about like, okay, if you're a boss, what kind of boss are you? Do the Black people, if they gave the Black people, the brown people at your job, the queer people, the trans people, an anonymous survey and feedback, how would you feel if they was like, this white lady boss, what kind of boss is she? Would that petrify you? Would that make you break into hives and rashes? That if the very thought of that thought scenario is bringing you hives, then you already know you're not about that anti-racist life, and you need to make those changes. So again, it has to be a practice. Everything, you have to learn how to see the world differently. You have to learn how to shape power differently. You have to learn how to understand power differently. You literally have to train your brain to do things differently, because unconscious bias is in all of us. And the way you arrest your unconscious bias is by being present and asking myself, is this a racist thought? Is this a sexist thought? Is this a transphobic thought? Is this a homophobic thought? Okay, how do I combat it? It's never gonna go away. You just have to get better at combating it.
Yes, yes. So the next question that we have, it's great because it gets into, I wanna make sure that we spend a few minutes talking about you and your work and who you're with and how you do this work, because I think you have a really phenomenal approach. Christina wants to know if you advise organizations to making space for Black, Indigenous, people of color in senior leadership roles. She has had these conversations with white leaders when there are only white people in the room and she gets shut down. So is that part of your work? And like, please tell us a little bit more about how you work. Repeat that again. So she's advocating that leadership be diversified. Yes. Okay. However, before you, so I keep going back to the MLK quote, is like, people don't want to be assimilating into a burning house.
So before you bring these diverse people, you have to ask yourself, is this a plantation that I'm getting ready to ask people of color to enter in? And how is that going to feel for them? So organizations need to do an audit of like, are we anti-racist? Is this space a good place for queer people, trans people, Black people? Because we know, again, Black people can be queer, can be trans, can be disabled. So when you think about anti-racist, you have to think about a plurality of things. And so I would ask, is your organization even at a place to receive these people and to receive them well? If they're not, don't you go putting that racial trauma on them, especially if you're not going to pay them well enough so they could have insurance, so they could go to the therapy to get better.
They're going to need when they work
from the racial trauma. So the work that I do individual work. I coach people, and I hold radical space, and I bear witness to them building and claiming a practice of anti-racism. I also do that with organizations. In some ways, I come in and I do workshops, or when people are really serious, they hire me to come and do an audit. What is this place and space? And we do an audit, and then people are like, okay, we want to be anti-racist. And then I look at every level, your policy, your meetings, your whatever, and I'll make sure, how do we now transform this space to become anti-racist, to become the kind of place where people are not leaving, running out the door, making anonymous glass door comments, talking about how awful, how racist, how sexist, how homophobic your place of work is. So that is what I do. I doula individuals and organizations into learning how to operationalize their anti-racism.
100%. And I just want to add, I'm not only a friend, I'm a client.
Yes, boo.
As a client, like Jamie and I were talking about our work with Lutze, and the way that we categorized it is like, Lutze will hold you high with a lot of love, but she will not let you get away with bullshit. And that has been the most loving thing, like coming into that process and having Lutze be like, hey, why don't you guys have this? And I'm like, ignorance, like being honest about showing up completely honestly, open-hearted, ready for a process that might feel, it's probably going to feel uncomfortable, it's going to challenge you, but that is what you need. That is why you're bringing this on. And like, I see a lot of organizations with leaders stepping down so they can put a Black person there, but I'm like, it's what you're saying. Wait, is that organization ready for that? How is that person going to be treated?
And thank you for bringing that up. And this is why when people ask me for books, a book is never really going to give you that. You know what's going to give you that? Being in practice and being in relationship, because that's not what Black people are asking for. I don't want to come into your toxic, raggedy organization. So again, it's like this assumption that you just add Black people and stir, you just add women and stir, you just add queers and stir, you add disabled people and stir, and all of a sudden that automatically makes a space better. Again, that's dehumanizing, and it continues to uphold anti-Blackness. So now my body now exists to make everybody and everything better. That is an anti-Black logic. It's not okay.
Insulting.
It's insulting
and traumatizing.
And it's traumatizing. And you know what? We have to get into the nuance of anti-racism. There's a lot of nuance. You're never going to stop unlearning. I, as a Black person, the more I learn and I read about chattel slavery, the more and I read about the psychology of whiteness, the more I'm like, oh my God. And I'm a pretty well-read person. I've been Black my whole life, and I am still coming to some mind-blowing, nuanced understandings of things. 1 or 2 books under your belt. So what you date Black people? So what you have mixed race kids? Baby, you don't know. Yeah. There's a lot you don't know. And so again, stop forcing Black people into your awful places and spaces. You need to renovate that place before you ask us to come in here, because we do not exist to make you better, to make you feel better. We're just trying to get a check like everybody else.
Yes.
You want someone to teach you? That is not the job of your Black co-worker. That is not that you want someone to teach you, create a diversity and inclusion person and stop giving those jobs to white women and white men. Stop it. Stop it.
Yeah.
Or get you somebody like me who's
yeah.
going to radically hold some space and make sure so you don't look like Boo Boo the Fool out here in these streets. Because trust me, someone is in therapy trying to reconcile themselves and heal from your Amy Cooperism. Yeah. Someone is in therapy right now bringing you up and remembering how you were awful to them in high school, awful to them at the job, awful to them at the PTA meeting. So again, on what level does Black life truly matter to you? And let's start there.
Beautiful. Lutze, where can people find you? And hire you?
You can find me on these internet streets wherever you live. Social Justice Doula on Instagram. Of course, I'm on Facebook, but these days I'm playing a lot more on Instagram. I have a newsletter that comes out every month. People say it's helpful. They like it. Go on my website, lutzesegu.com, and subscribe. All the past newsletters are on there. Read. I share resources and whatever I share. I do my best to give as much free stuff as I can. You want that extra stuff? You want that nuance? Holla at me. Let's have a conversation and let's see if your budget can get this level of work and love.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Boo. I appreciate it.
Bye, everyone.